Hello everyone, in today's video I'll be talking about Mrs. Doubtfire. Mrs. Doubtfire is a comedy that was directed by Chris Columbus. Prior to this, Chris Columbus directed Home Alone, which was his breakout as a filmmaker, and going on to direct Stepmom and 2 Harry Potter movies. It was produced by Marsha Grace Williams, Robin Williams' ex-wife. The plot of Mrs. Doubtfire is about Daniel Hillard, a difficult actor who quits his job due to creative differences. After throwing his son a birthday party but was not allowed due to his poor grades, his wife Miranda files for divorce due to his lack of responsibility. Daniel Hillard gets his own place and a job. Miranda wants to hire a housekeeper. Daniel pretends to be a 65-year-old British nanny named Mrs. Doubtfire, so that way he can spend more time with his kids. This movie won an Academy Award for Best Makeup. As I said before in my videos that came out the year I was born video, I was born when this movie came out in 1993. I mentioned Mrs. Doubtfire in that video, but I had to save that for a solo video. Man, I tell you, movies I grew up watching are old. Mrs. Doubtfire is one of my all-time favorite movies and comedies of all time. As a little kid after seeing Disney's Aladdin, which is my intro to Robin Williams, I saw this movie next seeing the connection that he was the voice of Genie in Aladdin. It's the movie that made me a fan of Robin Williams. Anytime I come back to rewatch this movie so many times, it's sad to me how we lost this man too early. This guy could do no wrong. One way of describing Robin Williams: talented, well-rounded, can do anything as an actor. Robin Williams is funny and hilarious, quirky, jolly, happy, and a funny guy. Despite his flaws and immaturity, he loves his children a lot. He's a great father to them. Daniel pretends to be Mrs. Doubtfire. He helped touch and improve their lives. This is a movie that's very funny from start to finish. It has a lot of memorable quotes that I quote on a daily basis. As a kid watching this movie to this day, it makes me laugh when Robin Williams tells the employment agency his voice talent. How does she not keep a straight face? Mr. Hillard, do you have any special skills? Oh yes, I do. I do voices. What do you mean you do voices? Well, I do voices. Yes! We have this man over in town life. Oops, we made a mistake. We happen to be in America. Don't ask for a green card. I don't want you in the worst way. I certainly say it's a rough meeting. It's not going very well for me. Hey boss, give it a chance. Go to any moment. Look at another that bone. I want to make a deal with you. Nancy and I are still figuring out our problem. You should do this. I'm going to go to mine. Don't make me smack you, baby. I will. Here you go. I do a self-good impersonation of a hot dog. My mom always laughs every time I do that hot dog impersonation. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I do voice impersonation was not my best, but at least I tried. I used to think I was funny, there was a time, but today you've all proven me wrong, and I thank you for that. When Miranda decides to hire a housekeeper, Daniel changes the number, pretends to act like different nannies who are responding to the ad for the job, making himself look bad, until she finds the perfect nanny in mind. I was in a band, severe star town. A band? I just want to know, are your kids well behaved, or they didn't feel like slacks every once in a while? I'll get back to you. Wow. I don't work with the bands, but there used to be one. Ah! Layla, get back in your cell. Don't make me get the hose. Hello. I am Job. Do you speak English? I am Job. I'm sorry, the position's been filled. Hangs up the phone. When Daniel first calls Miranda Mrs. Doubtfire, this is the 90s, pre-social media and pre-internet. This came out today. Miranda will look at Mrs. Doubtfire to make sure that she is real, not a fake person, and not a robot. The makeup on Mrs. Doubtfire still holds up and is still convincing. When he gets the job as the nanny, Daniel goes to his gay brother asking him to create and design a woman. It's a trial and error of comedy errors. As they go through the makeup process, Daniel quotes, "Feel like Gloria Swanson." His brother responds, "You look like a mother." "I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille." As you all remember a while back when I first started making my YouTube videos, I did a video on Sunset Boulevard, and this is the first time I heard that quote way before I saw the movie. And as an adult now, I get the joke. It's also funny they spoof Fiddler on the Roof. Matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match. Find me a find, catch me a catch. I've actually never seen that movie. True story. Or when he accidentally drops the mask and has to figure out how to disguise himself. He uses cake frosting. It's funny how when he accidentally scares Mrs. Sellner, he makes the tea, the frosting drops in the tea. The look on her face is priceless. The kitchen was hot that Kate Frost is actually melting on Robin Williams' face for real. I'm melting like a snow golden phoenix. Here we go again! When he's Mrs. Doubtfire, he disciplines his kids more as Mrs. Doubtfire than he did as Daniel. When he makes dinner, everything goes wrong. His fake breasts get on fire. That's another scene that makes me laugh out loud. And again, his reaction is just priceless. Ah! My first day as a woman, I'm getting hot flashes. If they shot that scene today, it would be CGI or a stuntman. Robin Williams was a pro. I read that Robin Williams, when he made this movie, did walk around San Francisco wearing the costume of Mrs. Doubtfire because no one would recognize him for obvious reasons. Heck, he went to a sex shop and bought sex toys dressed as Mrs. Doubtfire. Can't imagine how awkward that was. Anyway, how's your sex life? As I said before about Robin Williams being a talented guy, from reading about the making of this movie, according to Chris Columbus, he said that Robin Williams improvised a lot of this movie. That's why this film is so great and just, funny. Miranda Hiller, played by Sally Field, is the breadwinner of the family. She's strict. Miranda wanted an organized life. Felt like her marriage was falling apart because of Daniel's immaturity, lack of responsibility, and not having a regular job. The part when she gets a phone call in her house having a wild birthday party by her neighbor Gloria, she comes in mad, angry, shocked, annoyed, seeing a kid on the chandeliers. Anytime I watch this movie with my mom, she freaks out because if I did that as a little kid hanging on the chandeliers, she would have killed me. When she divorces Daniel, I don't know why, that judge looked like Alfred Hitchcock to me for some reason. Despite the judge's ruling, he said that it was only a temporary thing for Daniel's children have visitation rights only on Saturday, so we can figure things out, to get a job, and live in a stable, kid-friendly apartment that was safe for them. This is the kind of movie you sympathize with both Daniel and Miranda on different levels and seeing both point of views. It shows how two people that used to love each other at one point in the past, how they grow apart. When they tried fixing things and working things out, it was not meant to be. But in a weird way, the part when Miranda and Mrs. Doubtfire are having tea, he learns and realizes from Miranda why everything went wrong and downhill with their marriage. The actors who play the children of Daniel and Miranda are good. You also sympathize with them seeing how hard it is for them to see their parents divorced, how their family won't be the same when their parents were married. But then again, it's hard for a lot of children when seeing their parents go through divorces. Lydia, the oldest child at first, is not like the idea of her mom hiring a nanny does not appeal to Mrs. Doubtfire. But after seeing Dana and her mom smile for once, she apologized and Mrs. Doubtfire grows on her. Daniel pretends Mrs. Doubtfire understands what they are going through, but again, little did she know that Mrs. Doubtfire was her father. Chris is the middle child. He blames himself thinking that he did not have a birthday party, that his parents would not divorce. But like Daniel said to him that it was not his fault, the divorce was bound to happen, that his parents were growing apart for quite some time. He's a smart, bright kid, but he failed 3 classes, but improves when Mrs. Doubtfire gets in the picture. The way Chris finds out that his dad was Mrs. Doubtfire was kind of weird and awkward, and I guess he forgot to lock the door. Not a way to find out that your dad was pretending to be the nanny. Chris and Lydia were shocked at the same time, a little happy surprised knowing that their father was Mrs. Doubtfire. They make a promise and pact and vow to keep it a secret from their mother and not tell Natty because she will blow the secret. Natty, played by Mara Wilson. Around this time when I first saw this movie, I was familiar with Mara Wilson and Matilda. Yes, I admit, I used to love watching that movie when I was a little kid. Don't judge me. She does a good job in this movie. She's very cute. She loves her father-in-law and is very upset when her parents get divorced. Especially how they were in the middle of Charlotte's Web, and she was not sure who was going to do the voices. And he said, well, Grandma will do them, but she said that Grandma does not do the voices that well like he does. Stu Dunmire, played by future pre-James Bond actor Pierce Brosnan, he's an unfamiliar flame of Miranda's. She finds it attractive how he's organized, career-oriented, very successful. Well, he's not a bad guy or a jerk. He did want to try to be a part of Miranda's life, be a father figure to her children. He's not a stereotypical jerk where he wanted Miranda all to himself and send the kid to some, away to, a boarding military school. Originally, he was supposed to be a bad guy, but Chris Columbus rewrote the character's arc. Instead, Chris Columbus wrote him as a father substitute for Miranda's kids. It's funny the way Mrs. Doubtfire can play jokes and insult Stu. Like he took off the logo off of his Mercedes car, or how he asked her what part of London she is from, and her response is, "All over, dear." He does not know what part of London there is. Stu says your accent is a little flat, and she responds, "But so's your tongue." At the pool, Mrs. Doubtfire eavesdropped on Stu and his friend talking about his current relationship with Miranda. His friend asks, "What about their real father?" Stu says the guy's a loser. Daniel throws a line behind his back. It's one of the funniest classic lines ever in comedy. "Oh dear, I saw it. Some angry man from the kitchen. Did you not tip them? It was a run-by fruiting." Which is a very popular meme and YouTube video parodies today on the internet. At the restaurant, he tricks Stu into thinking Miranda has crabs, making sexual remarks. When Mrs. Doubtfire's teeth fell into the wine glass, that scene was improvised. It was not in the script, but it still works. Everyone's reaction was funny and priceless. Stu ordered jambalaya, and Stu requested the waiter non-spicy because he's allergic to red-hot spicy peppers. Daniel impersonates a cook and puts spicy pepper on the food. Hot jambalaya. I've read on IMDb.com that in real life, Daniel will be in jail for this. Despite Stu did not have an allergic reaction, he did not expect Stu to choke on the shrimp. And yes, that restaurant, Bridges Restaurant, is a real restaurant. I hope to go there someday and make a video vlog of Mrs. Doubtfire filming locations. I've only been to California once where they shot this movie. I was in San Francisco, but at that time I did not think about to go to the filming locations where they shot Mrs. Doubtfire at that time, back in 2011. Jonathan Lundy, played by Robert Prosky, you all may recognize from Last Action Hero. He's Daniel's boss while he works at the studio boxing and shipping film reels. Lundy produces educational kids' TV show programs. Due to poor ratings for a kids' TV show that is currently on the air, is about to get cancelled due to bad ratings. One day he sees Daniel on set act and perform a comedy routine while the film set is empty. He's impressed and asks for a dinner meeting and talk about his ideas to make a good kids' TV show program. At the restaurant, when Daniel switches back and forth between Mrs. Doubtfire and Daniel, after drinking so many scotches, Daniel's intoxicated and comes back dressed as Mrs. Doubtfire. Lundy thinks it's some random old lady lost and confused, and he responds, "Oh, sorry I'm late. After all those scotches, I had to piss like a racehorse." Lundy's confused and Daniel realizes that Mrs. Doubtfire can work as a TV show. I would like to introduce you to the host of your new show. Host? You've enjoyed Doubtfire, dear. I specialize in board education. Surprise! Why would Mrs. Doubtfire make a good TV show? I'm a hip old granny who could hip-hop, bebop, dance to your drop, and yo-wee, make a cup of cuckoo. The big message and moral of this movie is after parents who get divorced, they don't always get back together. They originally wanted to shoot an alternate ending where Daniel and Miranda get remarried, but both Robin Williams and Sally Fields both agreed that they didn't like this idea. It would have missed the whole point of this movie's message. As a kid growing up, this movie was the first time I learned about what divorce meant, and growing up, I knew a lot of friends of mine whose parents were divorced. I can remember some of my friends telling me that their fathers failed to make this month's alimony payments and child support. This is a go-to movie I watch when I'm feeling down and depressed. This is also the kind of movie that makes me feel safe. It's a timeless classic that gets better with age and never gets old for me, no matter how many times I've rewatched this movie over and over again, and this movie still makes me laugh. As an adult watching this movie today, I realized it has similarities to Tootsie with Dustin Hoffman. Just like Dustin Hoffman's character in Tootsie, he's a difficult actor to work with. No one wants to hire him, so he pretends to be a woman so he get a part on some TV soap opera TV show. Daniel was trying to send a message on the Pudgy the Cartoon show that kids should learn not to smoke, and that smoking is bad. The director did not like his improvisation. After disagreement, Daniel quits. What I've got to do is what I've got to do. In the words of Porky Pig, piss off, Lou. Great Robin Williams comeback. On a side note, the guy who played the voice director was the original voice of Launchpad from the original Disney DuckTales cartoon TV show. I learned that recently, and it was another surprise. With this talk about sending a message to kids that should never smoke, the part when they go to the restaurant for Miranda's birthday, the hostess asked Jonathan Lundy and Stu they wanted a smoking or non-smoking section. That is so outdated and so 90s. I remember that as a little kid when going to a restaurant, they would ask that as an option if you wanted to sit in a non-smoking section or smoking area in the restaurant. I don't remember when they stopped that. It could have been maybe the early 2000s. And that's because they found out that secondhand smoke kills. Believe it or not, you can go on YouTube, look up the Pudgy and Grunge short cartoon from this movie on YouTube. And it's surprisingly not bad despite it being a fake fictional cartoon. It was like a mock tribute to Chuck Jones' Looney Tune cartoons. Because this was made by 20th Century Fox, I guess they cannot borrow Looney Tune cartoons. They didn't make their own mock version of Tweeting Sylvester. As a kid, I used to think this was an actual cartoon. This movie shows that it took the same concept. It was not a remake. It was a change-up from Tootsie. Just like Dressed to Kill, taking the same concept from Psycho, from changing it up. When I first got this movie on DVD, it was interesting to see behind the scenes of making this movie and deleted scenes that I had no idea existed. Watching this movie as a kid in the early 2000s, there was no IMDb, YouTube. DVDs were new coming around the time and taking over VHS tapes around that time period. When I watched the deleted scenes on the DVD special, I was surprised at certain scenes that were cut. Like, for example, I thought it was funny when Mrs. Doubtfire is doing the laundry, he's having washing machine problems. The washing machine had a mind of its own. Miranda calls and he accidentally answers the phone as Daniel pretends to kick himself out to keep his cover safe. They should have left this part in the movie, it was funny. Or a subplot where Daniel tricks Gloria, the next door neighbor who ruined the birthday party. Tells her a secret formula to help grow the flowers better by using 2 liters of English breakfast tea, 1 tablespoon of coffee grinds brewed in dog urine. Gloria thinks this will help improve her gardening. Instead, she fell for a trick. The flowers died. As funny as this was, but I'm kind of glad this scene was cut out. When Daniel's running late to see Lydia perform a spelling bee contest, Daniel yells out loud anger at Miranda for not saving a seed, ruins Lydia's concentration, and she loses the spelling bee contest. After losing the contest and feeling bad, Daniel talks to Lydia. It's a melodrama father and daughter moment. She actually pretends to be Mrs. Doubtfire, Pudgy the parrot, and why not pretend that him and her mother are happy? Daniel tells her that he would not be a happy family. They pretended, and we can't act 24/7. Acting is a job for him. She says, it's your job to be my father. His response is, no, it's not a job. It's a joy being your father. I don't have to play the part of being your father. I am your father. Again, why did they cut this scene out? It's a beautiful, heartwarming scene moment. This movie is not only a comedy, it has good balance of comedy and drama at the same time. After the secret has been exposed, Daniel goes to Miranda's house explaining everything. They argue, and the kids yell out loud that they hate each of them for not trying to work at fixing the problem. An interesting scene, but kind of glad it was cut. It would have been a little bit too deep. There are other scenes they cut out, I won't go into detail on those. Then this video will be Mrs. Doubtfire, the director's cut. When I graduated college, I remember watching these fake recut trailers with my friends. They made a fake trailer and a joke on, like, what if Mrs. Doubtfire is a horror movie? I wrote a comment on that video saying, heck, Robin Williams played Cy Parrish in 1 Hour Photo. John Flickinger, aka the Flick Pick, who's another one of my favorite movie YouTubers and inspirations, pointed this out. He had a good point. This concept could work as a horror movie. The idea of a man pretending to be a nanny for his ex-wife and kids does sound like something out of a horror movie with an unhealthy obsession when you think about it. Like anything else, with this movie's popularity and success, they wanted to make a sequel to Mrs. Doubtfire. The idea for a sequel to this movie was in development for almost a decade. In the mid-2000s, Bonnie Hunt wrote an idea for a sequel, but Robin Williams did not like the idea. The original idea for the sequel was Daniel's daughter was going to go to college, and he pretends to disguise himself as a woman, again to protect and look out for his daughter. When the movie went through so many different rewrites and creative differences, and most of all, the death of Robin Williams in 2014 is the reason why a sequel to Mrs. Doubtfire was never made. As much as I love this movie, this is the kind of movie that does not need a sequel. The movie ends where they know that he was the nanny the entire time. The secret was out. Daniel and Miranda do work things out, but they don't remarry. Miranda decides Daniel will take the kids to school and pick them up after school while she's at work. It's a great ending. It has a great monologue speech by Mrs. Doubtfire on the TV show, giving a speech on how divorce does not mean you won't be a family. If your parents don't get back together sometimes, you'll always have to be a family in your heart, and your parents will always love their children no matter what. This speech had an impact on kids of my generation whose parents divorced. Before I end this video, this is a recording of my friend and one of my subscribers, Joey Catzarno, giving his thoughts on Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah, Miss Doubtfire is really a cool comedy movie and very funny. It came out 1993. I'm a horror fan from the 80s, 70s, and 80s, but I like comedy too. Ones from the 80s and 90s, and this is one that I really cool. I really thought it was fucking cool too, the way he dressed up, like, an older woman, and he had like the bodysuit on and stuff, and that was really awesome the way they did those effects. It reminds me of Big Mama House in a way, but Doubtfire's like that too. It's like cool the way they did the effects for the bodysuit and stuff. And towards the end of the movie too, when he's in the restaurant, he eats. He's eating with this older guy. His name is Robert in real life, and he's the guy that was also in the movie Christine. If anybody's seen that, of course, that's another cool movie, but he was also in that. And but that's another funny scene that was really cool towards the end too, like when they're eating in the restaurant, and that was really funny too. And then there's another cool scene too when he's trying to get out of the bodysuit or something later in the movie. I've seen it in the past. I haven't seen it a lot, but I've seen it a lot in the past. But it's really a funny movie. I've seen it a lot. And there's a scene like where he's trying to get out of the bodysuit or something to try to change, and then these two Chinese kids see him or something, and then he says like he felt embarrassed, and then after he says like "oh shit" or something like that when he drops his mask or something, then a truck goes over it. But that was really fucking hilarious the way they did, the way he was trying to get out of the bodysuit and stuff, and it was really funny, and it looked real too because the bodysuit really looked real the way they did the effects and stuff. That's before computers. That's what I liked about it too. But yeah, the bodysuit like it was really real. It was awesome. But I strongly recommend this movie. Like if you're a comedy fan and it's it's cool to watch around the holidays too, but I watch it other times, but it's cool to watch around this time too, the holidays. But if you're like a comedy fan too, like I'm a horror, but I'm a comedy fan too, but if you're like one of those, then yeah, you would really enjoy this. Alright, but anyway, I hope, whenever you download it, so you could do a review with that, and but happy holidays again too. I wanted to wish you a happy holiday again too. Hi John, yeah, I was gonna say that I did the review on the Doubtfire, so I sent it to you. So I know you wanted it before Thanksgiving, so I guess we'll be doing that after that sometime. The review's on it another week or next month. But like I said, let me know when Christian and yous too do the if there's a review I like. But it's nice I could do it on your channel too at times, so that's nice too. Coming up. Alright then, but I hope that you have a good weekend too. I'm going to be having ham for Thanksgiving, and it's really a good ham and stuff. That's what I'm going to be having. But yeah, let me know what you're having. And alright then, hope you have a good night too. I can do those too. It'll be cool.
So that was my video on Mrs. Doubtfire. Like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, get the latest updates on my YouTube channel. And I will see you next time for some Christmas video reviews next month for December. See you soon.